Arc Junkies presents Weld Wednesday with AWS, brought to you by the American Welding Society. And now your host, Jason Becker.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, joining me today is Darrill Gaschler, the Senior Manager of Section and Student Chapters for the American Welding Society. He's based out of Miami, Florida. I've had a lot of interactions with this man. He makes my life so much easier. So as most of you know, I am the chairman for the Central Florida section of the American Welding Society, and Darrill Gaschler has been my saving grace a lot of times because I'm not always very organized, and last minute I'm like, hey, I've got an upcoming section meeting. Can you post this out for me real quick? Or we're holding a competition. Can you help me out with some prizes and stuff to give away? So Darrill, welcome to the show, man. I'm really glad to have you here.
I'm glad to be here, and thank you for keeping my job interesting.
As always, right? So tell me a little bit about what I know what you do for AWS, but tell the listeners a little bit about what you do, kind of where you came from. How did you land into this position?
Sure. So I am the Senior Manager of Sections and Student Chapters. What that means, in a nutshell, is I have the privilege of getting to oversee our all of the AWS sections around the world. We've got 146 in North America. And when I say North America, I mean the majority of them are here in the United States, but we've also got a handful of sections in Canada, 2 active sections right now in Mexico that are all part of our North American sections. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And then we've got 16 international sections, either different regions or countries around the world that clearly have an interest not only in the welding industry, but in what the AWS is bringing to the table and trying to rally members together at a local level there. I got involved with the AWS. It's hard to believe because time has been flying so fast, but this year will be my 4th anniversary I'm coming up on, and I've been in the role I'm in now for 3 years. I originally started in our standards development department, and it was interesting because when I joined the AWS, a lot of my friends and past coworkers looked at it and said, "Man, what are you doing? How did you end up there?" My background has been in volunteer engagement and community organization, so finding ways to get people more involved in local communities and connect their passions and their skills with areas of need in those communities. And so I had become acquainted with the AWS, learned of an opportunity in the standards development department through a past colleague that's no longer with the organization. But talking with him, I said, man, I think there's a really neat opportunity for me to do what I'm doing for the AWS and kind of do it in a whole different way. And so I joined the standards development department as a program manager there, overseeing a handful of our technical committees. And essentially, what that is it's volunteer management at the very core. All the individuals that contribute to the development of AWS code, standards, specifications, and even our non-standards are all volunteers. It's an entirely voluntary workforce of people that are just committed and passionate and extremely knowledgeable and want to share that knowledge. And so our program managers there in the standards development department essentially work as volunteer mobilizers to keep these volunteers on task in organizing their knowledge, getting it together in the codes and standards that we produce, and also constantly working to try to onboard new volunteers. So we always have fresh insight, new representation within our standards development area. After being in that department for just about a year, a new opportunity opened up within the organization, which happens to be the role that I'm in now, overseeing sections and student chapters. We had a staff member, a beloved staff member, Brenda Kinney, who was with the organization for 31 years and retired in 2018. And there was a huge concern when she was retiring about how the impact she made within the organization was going to be filled. And so our leadership, I think, made a very smart decision at the time and took everything that Brenda had done for 31 years and divided it into 2 key components. One role overseeing membership operations, so trying to reach out, get more people involved with the society, retain our existing members, bring more corporate entities to the table. And then the second component was focused specifically on the grassroots organizing and mobilizing of our volunteers and our members, and that's the sections and student chapters component that I have the privilege of being involved in. And so that, taking it full back around from where I started in a career in really grassroots community, volunteer engagement, community mobilization, now to what I have the privilege of doing for the AWS is all about connecting with our members one-on-one, learning what they're looking for, and then doing our best to try to deliver it through what our sections and student chapters are providing.
And I remember because when we started the section, when we started working on the section, I was working with JT Mahoney because I wanted to bring a section to Central Florida because it was just such a long drive, for my students and some of the other people in Orlando. And he hooked me up with Renda Kenny. And that was like my go-to person. Any question that I had about, resurrecting this section and putting things together and like, what boxes do I have to put checks in order to make this, this section, stand back up and be legitimized and recognized by the AWS as well as the membership. And I worked with her one-on-one quite a bit, through via email and phone calls and all that. And I remember sitting there, I think it was Atlanta, I was at the AWS luncheon and everything, and then they presented her retirement plaque, and then they renamed the luncheon, the Renda Kenny luncheon, and I was like, this completely blindsided me. I was like, wait a minute, Renda's leaving? Actually, I think it was in Chicago. I was like, wait,
Chicago, I believe.
Yeah, I was like, she's leaving. What am I going to do now? Like, as you know, because as a chairman, I depended heavily on that support and that role, and I was like, man, who are they going to put in this seat, and like, how are they going to be able to fill her shoes, because she's done so much for the past 31 years and been so involved and like knows where everything is at, knows who to connect me with and connect the dots. And then when you took over, I was like, okay, I could breathe again, because like you came in and you picked up like right where she left off. And I don't know how you felt that transition was, but like from the outside looking in, I felt it was a very smooth transition, because I was, like I said, I thought I was going to be treading water, and, I got thrown a lifeline when you came on board, and I appreciate everything that you do. Like I said, every time I send you something, it's boom, it's done. I get an email back within a couple of minutes. Hey, I'm on top of it. I'm working on it right now. Or, you tell me exactly who I need to contact for the resources that I need. So it was a good transition. I feel that it was a smooth transition. AWS did a great job, when they selected you, and I believe Nasdi is the other one. To run
Evelyn,
Evelyn, sorry,
is my counterpart. Yeah.
Okay. To put everything together and keep it running smooth and just the way it's always been, and help the sections out, because sections kind of need all the help they can get, especially from headquarters and stuff. So it was really great when you guys came aboard and picked up right where she left off. There wasn't like a rough transition. We didn't have to get used to anything. So I want to compliment you and AWS for that very smooth transition.
Oh man, thank you. That's all I have to say about that. It was definitely it was a matter of keeping all of our heads above water at the same time. So to go on that, so my counterpart is Evelyn Andino, who supports our sections and directly oversees our student chapters, and then Nikki Banks joined the team at the same time as our director of membership. So she took over that membership operations component that I mentioned that Renda had also overseen previously. And it was the greatest thing, to continue to sing Renda's praises is she, at 31 years in, obviously wanted to make sure through the passion she sincerely has for the organization that everything was transitioned as smoothly as possible. And so she was there for us with everything we needed and stayed on board until she saw, and our leadership at AWS saw that we were able to grab the reins and run from there. So I'm glad to hear, 3 years later and going now, it's hard to believe it's been 3 years now since that transition took place, that things are just continuing to build steam.
Yeah. So tell me why would somebody like your average welder, why would they want to become a part of the AWS, and not only just become part of AWS, because there's a lot of benefits there as far as like insurance discounts. You get the welding journal every month, you get discounts on all the codes, publications, and specifications. But why would somebody want to take that membership to the next level and join a section and become active in that section?
Yep. And that's one of those things that you don't know until you know. And what we want to do is get more people to take advantage of those outstanding relationships that can be built. And so that's one of the core components, not to go too deep into the history, but if you look back at the foundation of the American Welding Society back in 1919, we were founded as a society of people who were interested in this burgeoning industry of welding and joining, and individuals that wanted to connect they wanted to organize in the areas, parts of the country that they were, so they could share their tips and tricks and tools and just be a resource to one another. We fast forward now, and while so much has changed around the world in the 102 years now that we've been an active society, a lot of the core elements of the AWS are exactly as they were back in 1919. As a society, we're here to bring like-minded, interested people together to help one another learn from one another. And that's where, going back just real quick to like our standards development department, those documents are all voluntarily developed. The contribution of knowledge is made by individuals that want to share that knowledge, and all of those documents are peer reviewed. And so a lot of that is at the very high level, what's happening around the society, and we're trying to capture that and bring it down to the grassroots level through our sections. And so not only the exchange of knowledge, but just the camaraderie, people coming out, wanting to connect with others who share this passion, whether it be a hobbyist that's just working on hot rods in the garage, on the weekends, or somebody that's working, steel frame high-rise buildings and wants to make sure that they're connecting and continuing to move up in the industry and take their job to the next level.
Yeah. And you're right. It's like, you said earlier, you really don't know until you know. And it wasn't until when I started teaching back in 2014 that I actually got involved with AWS, because I was looking, as an instructor, it's like, I've got a structural steel background, but not every student in my class is going to be a structural steel welder. So what can I do to expose them to the many different facets of welding? And it was like, I only know so much about a certain, so much about welding in general, but there's many things that I've never worked on turbine systems. I've never done a whole lot of pipe welding. I've never done automobile repair or custom intakes or exhaust systems. It's like, how do I expose them to this in my classroom? And that's when I started doing research and everything. I got on and I found out about the American Welding Society. And before, I only thought of AWS was codes, sections, standards. These are, this is how your weld's supposed to look like. These are discontinuities. This is what's considered a pass. This is how the tests are conducted to determine weld soundness, and all the code, standards, and specs. I mean, that's what you think of when I thought of AWS at the time. And then I was like, okay, there's a membership here. What do I get by becoming a member? And I started doing a little bit more research and digging into it. And I was like, okay, there's a lot of benefits, just not only for me becoming a member, but for our educational institution to become a member. And, so I got us signed up for it. And then I found out about the different section meetings. And, luckily enough, it was easy to find. Once I clicked on that sections tab, I popped in there and I was like, oh, okay, these people actually have a meeting this month. Like, I think it was like 2 weeks away. And I was like, well, that'd be kind of cool to, take my students up to that and, expose them to welding. I think it was a demonstration on, I think our very first meeting was Hypertherm. Hypertherm came in and did a welding or a cutting demonstration on some of their new equipment. We got to do some gouging and stuff like that. So I called up the section leader, and I want to say it was Howard Record at the time, who is now the district director of District 5. He was running the section. I called him up and I was like, hey, I want to come up there for the evening. Just wanted to give you a head count. Is it okay if I bring my students? And he's like, well, how many people you got? And I said, well, I've got about 14 of them that want to come up. And he's like, okay, done. So we went up there and we had a great time. The students got to get out there and cut and work on things, and I just started getting, I seen that level of interaction and the networking. I got to meet Chris Upman and Howard Record and JT Mahoney and all these other people there. And I was like, hey, these are all like-minded people they're passionate about welding just like me. This is like, this is a place I could hang out. This is, I feel like I belong here because we all have this common interest around that little, I call it that stupid little bright light that we all look at, when we're underneath the hood. We're like moths to a flame. We're all attracted to it. There's just something about it. And, I started getting more and more involved with it. And it's led to a lot of amazing opportunities, not just for me, but for my students. I found out about the different scholarships that, students could apply for because, we were working on, when I was there, each student had to apply per term for new tuition. So they'd have to pay I think it was like 16 weeks. Every time we got into a new term, they'd have to come up with more tuition money. Okay. So I started pushing scholarships to them. I said, hey, if you're, you can log on to AWS and you can fill out the stuff for this, to become to get a scholarship. And there's scholarships at the section level, and there's some at the district level, and then there's some at the national level. And then I started seeing getting my students to apply for it, and they started getting scholarships, to offset that tuition cost. And a lot of them needed it. I mean, sometimes it meant the difference between them coming back to school the next term or not.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, it helped them out tremendously. And I was like, okay, I'm going to keep, hanging out and going to these events and, seeing what else AWS has to offer. And I think the following year I got nominated as the welding instructor of the year for the state of Florida, which I was like, well, that's pretty cool. Because they seen what I was doing with my students and the level of care that I was taking, and then got to go the following year to the Instructors Institute, where that expanded my my network once again with Stephanie Hoffman and Travis Jumper and Jeremy Whittemore and like all the other people that I got to hang out with, and we've formed these connections and bonds that have lasted a lifetime. We're still great friends. We talk to each other all the time through text message or DMs on Instagram, and it's like I'm just continuing to build my network. And then my career started launching. I started getting more into. I was like, hey, this CWI thing, this looks like something I could do, and it could be beneficial because that's more information that I have to pass on to my students. So let me dig into this. And I got an email one day from Howard, and it went out to the entire section of North Central Florida, which we were a part of at that time.
Right.
And it said, hey, if you'd like to volunteer at the CWI seminar and help out the instructor, you can attend the class for free. You'll get the books and a toolkit. So, well, that's a no-brainer. It was one of those things like first person to apply gets it. So I shot him an email real quick before I even requested the time off from work. Shot him an email because it's a 1 week long seminar. I said, yeah, I'm very interested in that. And I was like the second person on the list. He's like, okay, somebody else already applied, but if they can't make it, I'll give you a call. 2 days later, he's like, hey, the other guy's not gonna be able to make it. You're it.
No kidding.
So I was like, perfect. So I gave my students like a week's worth of homework, and I went and attended the CWI seminar. And that gave me vast amounts of information. Like going from a welder to like the technical side, I think that's a great way to do it because like everything that the instructor for it was Dr. Scott Helzer, who I've had on the podcast before, but everything that he was talking about, it made sense to me because I've put my hands on it. I've made those welds. I've used that equipment. I've seen those testing instruments before. I've never used them, but it made me look at welding from a different view. And now I've got something better to teach my students. So, I mean, there's just so many different opportunities. I mean, in your part, you work a little bit with the Instructors Institute. I mean, you come into the classroom and...
Well, the Leadership Symposium side of it. So, yeah, those are two of our, really signature programs that the AWS had going on for, 20 plus years now. And those, to your point, those are some of the unique opportunities that if you don't know until you actually see it activated. Once you see it or hear somebody, hear of a member that's attended either the Instructors Institute, which is a 5-day fully immersive experience based around AWS headquarters, where we bring educators from around the country around to work with top industry leaders on new technology, best practices, anything and everything you can think of. It's an incredible experience. I have not heard a single person that's gone through that program say, nah, I could have found a better use of my time. Most of them are saying what you're saying, where it was invaluable and they would have never been able to get what they got in those 5 days anywhere else. And then the flip side of that is our Leadership Symposium, which is another signature program we offer once a year in the summertime. We bring about 40 up and coming leaders from around the society down to Miami to spend 3 days with us and a couple facilitators to specifically focus on their leadership skills. Their personal and professional leadership skills, working with them to develop those, not only to better benefit themselves as growing leaders within the industry, but also to help them become the next group of leaders within the American Welding Society. And within that, we've seen members rise up to become members of our board, district directors, section leaders, you name it, as well as then just going on to be very successful within the field.
Yeah, and I mean, both of them are great programs. As an educator, I got to attend both because I started off doing the Instructors Institute 1 year, and I think the following year or the year after that, I got to go to the Leadership Symposium because that's when we resurrected the section of Central Florida. And that's what baffled me is I was like, these classes are free, and all I have to do is submit an application to attend. What's the catch? They're like, there's no catch. It's for the Instructors Institute, it's a 1 week, all expenses paid trip to Miami, Florida. You get to meet up with new other welding educators. Lincoln's going to be there. Hobart's there. Lincoln's there. Miller was there. Jay Jones was there with Harris Torches, and ESOB was there. I mean, you got all these different companies, and they're showing us like all this new, cool, innovative equipment, and it's not a sales pitch. It's like, here's how you teach welding. Here's one aspect of it. You can teach it like this. You can teach it like this, and then hanging out with Dr. Rick Polanin, that was awesome getting to meet him, because I mean, the dude writes textbooks. He's a freaking genius when it comes to welding. But then he talked to us about different learning styles and how to teach, and I think that really helped me as a new welding educator, because I had no idea how to teach welding. I mean, I was doing an okay-ish job, when I first started out, but that took me up to the next level. And had I not, scanned the website way back when and said, how can I get my students more involved in the welding industry, I would have never had that opportunity. And like I said, it's free. I mean, once you become an AWS member, you start getting more involved in it. And the more time and effort you put into it, the more you get out of the different benefits and opportunities that are available for you.
Yep. And to that point, to just kind of go back to one of the other things you mentioned, just because it's another benefit that a lot of folks don't realize, which is that free seminar seat that you mentioned that you were able to take advantage of there in Central Florida. As AWS seminars take place around the country, we work with our sections at the local level to help not only promote those events, to make sure people within the industry and the area are aware that AWS is coming to town with a week-long seminar and exam, but also to help facilitate those experiences. So our section leaders, again, all volunteers, are rallying around these things and helping to serve as seminar support. They're helping the instructor get all the materials ready. They're helping to lead that experience and make that a successful, enjoyable experience for everyone that's a part of it. And the benefit back to the section is that the section gets to send one of their section members to participate, as you mentioned, completely complimentary, including the materials for that seminar. And what we're seeing then is a great involvement of people that are using in the right way sections for what they're for. They're there to help you identify additional benefits that you might not be able to access on your own. You might not have the money to pay for a 5-day seminar. But if you're involved with your section, you reach out to your section leadership and they see the potential within you. They'll go ahead and nominate you for that role. And there you go. You've got, a considerable savings and a heck of a lot of learning that you just absorb simply by being involved, by raising your hand and saying, hey, I'm here. Let's go.
Yeah. And same thing with the leadership symposium. Like when I took over section, I was like, okay, I volunteered to do this. Now it's coming to fruition. Like, now what do I do? Like, I've never run a section before. I mean, I've volunteered at a couple of organizations, but never at this level. Like, what do I do now? And then I found out about the leadership symposium. And so I put my name in the hat for that, filled out the application, typed up the essay and everything, why I wanted to do it, why it would be beneficial. Because both of these items, you've got 22 districts throughout the U.S., and then I think the ones in Canada and Mexico also.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're putting your name in the hat for your district. So I got to compete against everybody from District 5 covers.
That's right.
Atlanta, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, and I think a little bit of Alabama.
Basically everything covered, pretty much the Southeast.
Yeah, the whole Southeast. So I had to compete against all the other instructors that were going through that, the same process. So it wasn't like, it's Jason, we're just going to give it to him. Like, no, I had to put in work and effort and get voted on to be able to attend these things.
That's right.
But, if I had not received that, I could have applied again next year and the following year.
That's right.
And eventually you're going to get selected because you're putting in the time and the effort and your name keeps popping up. So, and it was an invaluable resource. Once again, the 3-day symposium that I went down to had a blast. Got to meet even more people that are running their sections and, interact with them and see, hey, how are you running your sections? What are some of the ideas that you guys are doing to draw in more members and make your section meetings more enjoyable and entertaining and get more participation? And that's where I've gotten a lot of ideas to do, like, let's do a welding competition. I never thought of that. So I think a couple weekends ago we held our third welding competition there at Valencia College, in partnership with the American Welding Society Central Florida section, and we gave away a bunch of great prizes, and Howard was there, and students got scholarships. We passed out, we raffled off 5 free memberships for students so they can get more involved. And it's just like I said, the more you get involved, the more you can get out of it. Mm-hmm. There's just so many different opportunities.
And that's the biggest thing is for people, I think, building on what you said there, when people look at it from the outside, they go, well, that's not me. I don't do that. I'm not that leader. Or I'm not that individual. I've never done something like that before. So why start now? And I would easily just come back and say, well, that's even more of a reason to start now, is because clearly if you're a member of the AWS one way or another, you've got skin in the game within the industry. You're either, someone who's standing on the outside, kind of looking to get more involved, or you already are extremely involved as a CWI, as an instructor, as an engineer, as someone who is sincerely passionate about what the AWS represents. And we want you to be able to share that passion in whatever way makes the most sense to you. And as people start getting more involved at the local level in their backyard, through their local sections, they start to not only feel more of that passion, just as you're doing what you love to do it more typically. Mm-hmm. And so as we get people doing that thing in their backyard, we start to see them realize, well, hey, okay, I showed up to a meeting. All right, well, that was cool. I got to meet some people. Now what? And I highlighted this today during a conversation we were having, but talking about how our best sections, what they do is they spot that and they start pulling you in and saying, well, hey, what else do you want to do? How can we utilize that passion to get more people to share what they love to do, or just make things like welding competitions more accessible? We find a lot of people that, again, go from standing on the outside to becoming very involved very quickly as soon as they get involved, because they realize it isn't hard. It's not a huge time commitment. And it's really all based on what you want to do. You don't have to come right in and be the chairperson of the section from day one, though we've had quite a few people that have done that because they've felt so strongly about it. You could be someone that just jumps into a meeting and starts getting more involved. Maybe you represent a company and you want to provide a demo. Your section would almost guaranteed love to have you come out and provide some kind of demo or presentation for the group. And then maybe a couple months from then you come back and you say, well, hey, that was fun. I want to start getting more people lined up to be presenters or speakers for your section. And real quick, you become the program committee chairperson. Just doing that passion of helping to get more of your peers from around other companies, from around the industry to come out and provide presentations, share their products, their new services, whatever they have, so people can be more informed and more aware of what's going on. There's so many different ways that people can get involved, and it all simply starts with going back to the bottom line of a lot of what we're saying is just showing up or showing your interest and letting us help you take it from there.
That was the coolest part that I found about the whole process is it's not a buy-in. I don't have to pay to go to these meetings. Like it's, hey, you want to come? Come on out. We're going to feed you. We got drinks here. We got food. Technical demonstrations, or have a guest speaker come in and talk about their industry, do PowerPoint presentations on new codes and standards that are coming out, or maybe, hey, here's why these codes and standards exist. We had a guy from Disney come out and do an entire presentation on the structural components and why they are the way they are. It's a fascinating topic. Sandvik is coming out and done with the North Central section that I attended, because I still attend their meetings, when I can. They came out and did a whole presentation on stainless steel, especially when it applies to gas metal arc welding. And I found that was very fascinating. I was learning things about stainless steel that I never knew existed. Same thing with Hypertherm has come out. We just had Rockmount Research come down to our section and do a demonstration on maintenance welding and show off some of their cool products. So, it exposes you to a lot of things that you've never seen. We had Lincoln come in and do a demonstration on STT, and it's not like you're not just hanging out watching these guys do their thing. It's like, okay, here's how you do it, and then put a hood on, grab a pair of gloves, put a jacket on, come over here and you try it. So it's very interactive, and like I said, there's no cost, there's no buying. You just show up, get some pizza or a sandwich, and grab a drink, and listen to the presentation or the demonstration that they're going to do, and then you go out there and you do it yourself. You get to practice. And then you meet more people that are passionate about welding in your community. These are people local to your area, and they're participating in it. So, it's just very beneficial for everybody that's involved. and you can be as involved as much as you want or as little as you want. You can just show up to the meetings and have a good time and then go home at the end of the night, or you can show up, have a good time, and get involved with the section in a leadership capacity, and nobody's going to look at you any different either way. You know,
That's
like
right.
I said, there's really no buy-in. It's a benefit to a membership you already have.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you're...
And one of the neatest things, not to step on you there, Jason, but one of the neatest things to kind of build on just the accessibility, all of the AWS section meetings, with very little exception, some are exclusive to exclusive kind of members only meetings or events, but the majority of AWS section activity is open to the public, regardless of whether you're a member or non-member. Now, as you want to get more involved, and if you are a member, then that opens up even more of those doors and opportunities, things that we mentioned, like the Instructors Institute Leadership Symposium, the complimentary seminar seat. We haven't even touched on how our sections all have the ability to host what we call section library, which is, you know, a library filled with publications, AWS publications, code standards. Some, I was just talking with another section leader today that's looking at adding some test specimens and exam replica kits in there to provide even greater value for the members in their area. That's a contribution that section is making to the community, that if you're a member, you can prove you're a member, you can come in and you can make use of those publications, those specimens, et cetera, to further whatever it is you're trying to do. If you're trying to troubleshoot and you can't afford to go out and purchase that code book, not taking anything away from our bookstore, but that's what our section libraries are there for, as well as, in some cases, we can't provide formal technical support through our sections, but you'll find through that camaraderie, just kind of chatting with one another, one of the things that we see happen very often at these section meetings is people sharing, hey, here's a job I'm on, here's a challenge that I'm butted up against. What would you all do if you were faced with this? And you start getting this true kind of group think, coming up with 4 or 5 different ways to address that one problem. And that guy or girl's walking out of there going, well, heck, that just paid $0. You know, I didn't pay anything to get in it, but that just paid for me making the trip out to that meeting because I got guidance and advice and got to look at this thing in a whole new way. So there's just so many intangible things that also come out of the involvement. In addition to that networking that I'm mentioning, I can't tell you how many members I've spoken with in the last few years that tell me, you know, Darrill, the reason why I'm in the job I'm in is because I showed up to XYZ section meeting and I met so-and-so and he connected me to so-and-so and bam, now I'm over here working here. That's how I got that job over there. It again, kind of all cycles back around to just get your foot in the door, kind of show up, whether it's in person or now we're seeing a lot of our section events online because of the disruption COVID threw us all through over the past year. Our sections rose to the occasion and said, well, hey, just because we can't meet in person doesn't mean we shouldn't be meeting, or doesn't mean that our members have to sit around for a year and not continue to get involved or have these conversations. So we've been seeing more and more online meetings. Our Portland section had a meeting last week that had over 100 people online for a technical presentation and then just a general kind of chat afterwards. And it's amazing to see things like that because you're starting to see those people saying, hey, no matter what it is, I'm just excited to get together with folks that are feeling what I'm feeling.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I had no idea that they had up to 100 people in there. That's really neat. We did one during COVID, like you said. You know, I still wanted to keep the membership involved. Say, hey, you know, we're still here, even though we can't meet in person. You know, we put together it was a positive material identification seminar. So we had a company come out and they actually have this. Well, I mean, he broadcasted live from wherever he was from, but he had a machine that you actually just put the gun up to the material, you pull the trigger, and it tells you exactly what it is. Cool. So that's something that, you know, people wouldn't typically be exposed to. Mm-hmm. I know that Darrill Peterson with the West Coast section, he's running them all the time. So I get the invites for that, and I tag along on his. And I just sit there in the crowd, you know, just kind of watching them. He did a great presentation on the changes of the D11 2020 edition of the code book. So I actually had him on for a Weld Wednesday episode to do the same thing. So once again, you know, networking. You know, that's how I met Darrill. Had I not attended a section meeting, I never would have met him. You know, so it's just great. And then, like, once you get involved with, you know, a little bit further, you can do scholarships and stuff like that. You can be on the scholarship committee. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways to get involved depending on your talent, your availability, what your strengths are. I mean, there's always something you can get involved with. And we're getting ready to have our district conference actually next weekend. So we're all meeting up in Clearwater to talk about, our regular business for the entire district and see what we're going to do, make plans for next year going forward. I get to interact with all the other chairmen of the other sections and say, hey, what are you guys doing for section meetings? What are some, things that you found that's working? What's not working for you guys? That maybe we can start implementing some things that's working for you in our section as well. And it just builds up camaraderie, and you meet new people. And same thing, to speak to what you said earlier about people getting hired at section meetings. I've had students, they're getting ready to graduate my program, meet up with an employer, and they don't know who each other are. And they're just talking about welding. And the next thing you know, boom, he's got a job offer, and it gets hired through a company. So it's been a great resource for me as an educator as well as a welder.
And trying to make these things, because we're talking about this, and what happens a lot of times, because our sections are so large and cover a lot of geographic area in some cases, and areas like Central Florida, they're a little tighter, and thanks to volunteers like you that stepped up, and originally when it was the North Central Florida section and expanded that, or kind of was comprised of that whole area of north Central Florida. It was a huge geographic area. But folks like you step into these sections and say, well, hey, I love what I'm getting out of this. I want to get more involved, but man, I can't drive 2 hours to a meeting once a month, and I don't want to lose that opportunity to connect. So you start very much from the grassroots level, just organizing things. And by communicating with us at headquarters, we were able to get with you and create basically a branch that's its own section now there in Central Florida. So North Central Florida section still active and kicking butt, but now we've got Central Florida, Orlando happening. Despite that, even with the sections starting to get more and more accessible in a physical way, thanks again, the silver lining in a lot of ways of COVID was all these online meetings and things we were thrust into, something that a lot of us went into reluctantly and are now so eager to get back to the in-person. But that technology was really pushed to the limits over this past year. We all learned how to use it. We learned how to use it to our advantages. And so now we're going to continue to see more and more activity online or in a hybrid setting where we're having meetings. A lot of our district conferences this year are going to be in a hybrid setting. People are going to be able to be there in person, but if someone can't attend because they can't travel to get there, they couldn't make the time commitment to be there, they can click a link and pop in and participate. And so what I want to encourage everybody to do is, while you're hearing us talking about showing up and networking and shaking hands and doing physical hands-on product demos, you might say, well, hey, I know my section. My section is 3 hours south of me, or my section is 300 miles, where they meet is 300 miles away from me. I can't get involved. What we'd love to challenge you to do is reach out to that section leadership, let them know you're interested in what they have to offer, and work with them and work with me. And I'll be happy to share my contact information when we wrap up here. Work with us to see how we can make those experiences more accessible to you, either by popping up maybe an event in your area, or by making some of this, the online meetings more accessible to you. To one more point on that, and then I'll stop because I know I'm rambling on here, but because of these online meetings being so accessible, anyone from anywhere can join in on meetings around the world. I've been participating in our Saudi Arabia sections meetings every other month since the start of this year, something I would never have been able to do otherwise. And through a click of the link, there I am on the other side of the world. Just like last night, I was on with the Portland section and New Mexico section yesterday, popping all over the place just by clicking links. And so we've made all of those section events that are being conducted online accessible through the AWS website. So if you go to aws.org and you click on the membership button and you scroll down and look for the section information, you'll see a link that says upcoming section meetings. And if you click that, you'll see a list of events that are coming up that our section leaders have made us aware of. You'll see whether they're scheduled to be in person or online or hybrid. And if it's online, you can just click a link right there on the day and time of the event and jump right in, again, in most cases at absolutely no cost. and not even if you're not a member. It's a great, easy exposure to some really cool things. I won't name, names just to be fair to folks, but we're getting some very high profile speakers that are providing presentations for these online meetings because they're able to join from their home on the other side of the world. And that's how we're seeing some of these meetings with not only 25 and 50, but 100. And Saudi Arabia section had a meeting in January that had 203 people online for their technical presentation. So making that stuff accessible so that no matter where you are around the world can really take part.
That's really cool. I'm checking it out now, like in the background here, that I didn't realize that all those were available. So once again, you don't know what you don't know. But I think that's a great resource, just to be exposed to, hey, what are they doing in Portland? What's welding like in Saudi Arabia? How are they doing things down in Mexico? These are things that I would never have access to. So now I got to start adding things to my calendar. Thanks, Darrill.
Hey, man, and we're trying to make it easy. And a lot of those, all you have to do is click a button. It'll add it to your calendar, too. So, we're trying to make it easy because there's such a value in what our section leaders are providing. We want to give our section leaders the respect for the time and effort they're putting in to help promote their events as best we can. And no easier way, just like I'm saying, I'm sharing my experience as a staff member supporting a lot of these things. But we are also, as I'm jumping in on a meeting in Alaska, let's say, I'm connecting with members from Texas. The Alaska section meeting that I was a part of last week, there was a member from Texas that had just transplanted to Alaska, and his first item of business was to join in, get involved with the local section, introduce himself. We had the same thing happen last night with the New Mexico section meeting. I keep mentioning them with outstanding section. So if you're in New Mexico, definitely connect with the New Mexico section. But they had an online meeting last night, and they had a new individual just moved from Denver to Santa Fe, 4 days in town. And one of the first things he did was make sure to connect with the section. So just, again, once and you start seeing these people that are all about it because there's so many benefits and it's just fun. You're just hanging out with buddies.
Yeah. And that makes sense too, because, like a lot of welders, they want to follow the money, so they travel around. Yep. So, if next week you're going to be in Houston, you can pop into a section meeting over there. If, the following week you're going to be in North Carolina, or 6 months from now you're going to be in North Carolina, pop into a meeting over there. So, you could pretty much find a section meeting wherever you're going to travel to. So I've never even... Our
distributors and representatives, folks, just like you said, not only the welders, but anyone that might be traveling around, definitely just keep the AWS website in mind. Now that we have that upcoming section meetings thing, no matter where you're traveling, you can pop and see if there's something going on in that area.
Yeah, I did get an email from the folks at North Central because I'm actually a part of the North Central Florida section, just because of where my house is. I fall under their section, but I attend and do all the stuff for Central Florida. But so I got their meeting notification last night. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend that one, but I wanted to check that out. So I'm going to see if that one's actually available to download later on, because they talked about cracking the codes that protect our community. And I was like, man, that'd be an interesting topic, but tonight I can't do it. But now I'm going to have to reach out to them and see if that's available, if they recorded that.
And a lot of those things too, to that point of we know, even though we're trying to make things more accessible by making them online, so maybe you can't travel because you get off work at 5 and the meeting starts at 6, or maybe the meeting is 2 hours away from where you live. All these benefits of just being able to click and jump in online still don't make everything accessible to everyone all the time, because you might have another commitment. You've got the kids you got to feed, you got to get home and take care of stuff, or maybe you're working a late shift. So a lot of these online meetings are being recorded and posted to the section's websites. And so all of our sections have a website hosted through, in many cases, right through the AWS website. You can find them. You can click through, find your local section information, find their website, see what kind of events they've had, and see if there are any recordings of recent meetings posted, so you can watch those on demand, as you're sitting around instead of watching Netflix or, another company. I shouldn't have even said that. You can go on, watch an AWS meeting.
That's like saying cable anymore.
There you go.
Everybody's got it. No, that's really cool. And I think the fact that, it's becoming more accessible to people because COVID or travel or work schedules, a lot of things interfere. So I think having those links accessible on the go, or, for kind of fit your schedule when you've got time, you can still attend those meetings and learn things. There's all the different meetings that I've been to. I've learned so much that I would have never had access to if I just stayed in my own little bubble. and just did my regular 9 to 5 or as a welder 6 to 6 or 6 to 10, 12, 14-hour shifts, you don't, if you stay in that bubble, you don't realize what else is out there.
Right.
There's just so many different things that you can do with it. And I know that section members or the executive chairs, they're trying to find more and more things. So like I talked to people out in Houston, they do like a national welding certification day. So, they'll have people come in and, it's kind of like a fundraiser and they'll generate funds that way, but you can actually go in and get a weld certification right there at the school that they're partnering up with. So, I think that's really cool that you can get into that and do those different types of things. And like I said, the technical meetings that you go to, and if you're a CWI and you're not attending these things, you're just wrong, man, because you can actually earn all your CEUs and everything to apply towards, your CWI renewal. So if you're going to be coming up on renewal and, for your 9-year recert, you got to show those 80 hours.
That's right.
You can earn these throughout the year just by going and hanging out, eating pizza and watching a technical demonstration or I always refer back to pizza. That's usually we do pizza or pub subs. So, but you can. And then you're earning professional development while you're there.
Exactly.
And I think at the end of the day, that's also going to make you a little bit more employable too, because you're staying current with what's going on in the industry.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. It's I guess the theme that we're coming up on is, you don't know until you know. And then once you get involved, the doors just keep opening up and opening up. And whether it's, attending just to earn those PDHs to use towards your 9-year, whether it's, getting out because you're new in the community, maybe you just traveled across the country for a job, whether it's to work something or be a rep. A lot of people are transplants right now because of the COVID disruption. They're relocating themselves. It's a great way to get out and meet folks in the area, not only in person, but online, make those connections, see who's who, see who the players are, get your footing, and then get out and introduce yourself to them, and then continue to take advantage of the benefits that unfold from there. Not only that networking connection, things like the section library that we mentioned, those additional personal and professional development opportunities, not only by serving which we haven't even really talked about, but serving as a leader of a section, part of that section's leadership team. One of the biggest selling points I tell people when they say, well, yeah, I want to get more involved, but why? What's the benefit to me? It's really a no-loss way of developing your skills. If you're somebody that's trying to come up and work on certain personal or professional skills that you're challenged by, whether it's public speaking, whether it's project management and planning, organizing people, managing people, stepping up into a leadership role, a voluntary leadership role with our sections is a great way to get that experience on the go right there in your area, to build those strengths, really clearly identify what you need to work on and then put it to action right there. And at the end of the day, not only is it benefiting you, but you're giving back to the society and all those that we're serving and helping to make more of these meetings and events and opportunities available to others, and then continuing to carry that on from there through the Instructors Institute Leadership Symposium, the complimentary seminar. There's just so much.
Yeah, there's a ridiculous amount of resources and you don't know about it until you get involved.
Yeah.
So that's great. So how can people get more information on, number one, becoming an AWS member, and then finding out where their section is within their area?
Yep. So easiest way, I'll make it, try to make it not complicated at all. Just email membership@aws.org. My component of the organization is housed within our membership department, so I get to see the messages that come through there. If you are interested in talking more about anything that we're discussing today, you can send an email to membership@aws.org and just reference the ARC Junkies podcast or put section activity or whatever there in the subject line, and it'll be easy for us to scoop it out. If you want to talk to anyone directly, you can call us right at AWS World Headquarters just by calling 1-800-443-9353. That'll take you to our main line, and you can ask for me. My name is Darrill Gaschler. You can ask for any of our specific departments, ask for membership, ask for certification. But going back to that theme, if you don't know or you don't know until you know, send an email. Hit us at membership@aws.org, pick up the phone, give a call, let one of our customer service folks know, or ask for Darrill, and they'll route you to me. And I'm happy to speak with everybody about anything that you all are interested in talking about. We're excited to get people involved in the society.
Definitely. And if you're in the Central Florida, you can always email show@arcjunkies.com, and I can hook you up, and you can start attending our section meetings. We have a blast, man. We have a good time every time we do it, man. I've never had a bad time at one of the section meetings. And I'm not tooting my own horn, but I mean it's just a fun time to get with others in the industry, whether it's technical demonstrations, the speaking component where they're learning about something, the welding competitions that we had, because that's open to students as well as professional welders. There's just awesome opportunities. So definitely look into it.
And it sounds like there might be pizza.
Oh, there's definitely pizza or pub subs. And I know you're familiar with pub subs because you're down here in Florida too. But yeah, if you're ever in the Central Florida area, look it up or look up our section. Come on down. We'd love to have you. Click on the resources tab there for upcoming events or upcoming section meetings. And if we're having an event, we'd love to have you out there.
Absolutely.
Well, Darrill, it's been great chatting with you. Hopefully I get down to Miami sometime this year, or we link up at Fab Tech or something. I look forward to seeing you once again. And again, thank you so much for all your help. You just make my volunteer life a lot easier, putting things together and getting the information out there to the masses so that other people can get involved and share the same experiences.
Right on. Thank you. No, if it weren't for volunteers like you, we wouldn't be doing a lot of what we do, because AWS, at the end of the day, we're here for our members, and we really are supported by our members, not only through membership and all of the other products and services we provide, but through the volunteer leadership that folks like you are providing. So thank you.
All right. Great having you on.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for June's episode of Weld Wednesday with AWS. You can find me on Instagram at ArcJunkies Podcast. You can email me directly, show@arcjunkies.com. For more information on AWS memberships, benefits, and section information, you can go to aws.org and click on the membership tab. Stay safe out there, and until next time, make every weld better than your last.